In the heart of a bustling city stood an old, forgotten department store. Its once gleaming facade now wore the patina of neglect, its windows coated with grime and its grand entrance obscured by shadows. Few dared to venture inside, for rumors whispered of something sinister lurking within its decaying walls. One chilly autumn evening, a group of curious teenagers decided to defy the warnings and explore the abandoned store. Among them was Sarah, a fearless thrill-seeker who scoffed at the notion of superstition. With flashlights in hand and nerves of steel, they pushed open the creaking doors and stepped into the darkness beyond. The interior was a labyrinth of forgotten memories, with aisles of dusty shelves and racks of faded clothing. The air hung heavy with the scent of mildew and decay, and every step echoed through the empty halls like a mournful lament. Yet, amidst the silence, there was something unsettlingly alive about the store. As they ventured deeper, the group noticed something peculiar about the mannequins that lined the aisles. At first, it was merely a trick of the light or a figment of their overactive imaginations. But soon, they couldn't deny the chilling truth. The mannequins seemed to move on their own. Their limbs shifted subtly, their plastic eyes followed the trespassers' every move, and their painted lips curled into twisted smiles. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she watched the lifeless figures come to life before her eyes. She tried to convince herself that it was merely a trick of the mind, a product of the eerie atmosphere, but deep down, she knew it was something more sinister. As they pressed on, the teenagers found themselves separated, each one pursued by the malevolent mannequins that now roamed the store like silent sentinels of the night. Sarah's flashlight flickered as she stumbled through the darkness, the sound of her own panicked breath echoing in her ears. She turned a corner and came face to face with a mannequin unlike any she had seen before. Its features were twisted in a grotesque mockery of humanity, its eyes gleaming with a malicious intelligence. Sarah froze in terror as the figure reached out with its cold, plastic hands, its touch sending shivers down her spine. With a desperate cry, she fled, the sound of her footsteps drowned out by the sinister whispers that seemed to emanate from every corner of the store. She raced through the aisles, pursued by an army of lifeless figures intent on claiming her as their own. Just when she thought she could run no further, Sarah stumbled upon an old service elevator hidden in the depths of the store. With trembling hands, she pressed the button and prayed for escape. The doors creaked open, and she tumbled inside, the echoes of her pursuers fading into the darkness behind her. As the elevator ascended, Sarah dared to breathe a sigh of relief, but the terror of that night would haunt her dreams for years to come. For in the depths of that abandoned store, something evil lurked, something that hungered for the souls of the living and would stop at nothing to claim them as its own. And as long as the mannequins remained, so too would the darkness that dwelled within those forsaken halls. As Sarah emerged from the elevator, she found herself in a forgotten attic, filled with cobwebs and dust-covered relics of the past. The air was thick with an oppressive silence, broken only by the distant sounds of the city outside. Feeling a sense of unease gnawing at her, Sarah cautiously explored the attic, her flashlight casting long, ominous shadows across the decaying furniture and forgotten treasures. But no matter where she turned, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, as if unseen eyes followed her every move. Just as she was about to retreat back to the safety of the elevator, Sarah's gaze fell upon a lone mannequin standing in the corner of the room. Its form was obscured by the shadows, but there was something undeniably sinister about its presence. With a sense of foreboding, Sarah approached the mannequin, her footsteps echoing through the silence like a death knell. As she drew closer, she could see that its features were twisted into a malevolent grin, its eyes glinting with a darkness that seemed to pierce her very soul. Before she could react, the mannequin lunged forward with inhuman speed, its plastic limbs contorting into grotesque shapes as it reached out to ensnare her. Sarah stumbled backwards, her heart pounding in her chest as she scrambled to evade its grasp. But the mannequin was relentless, its movements fluid and unnatural as it pursued her through the attic, its twisted form becoming a blur in the dim light. With every passing moment, Sarah felt the icy grip of fear tightening around her throat, threatening to consume her completely. Just when she thought all hope was lost, Sarah spotted a small hatch in the floor, barely visible beneath a layer of dust and debris. With a surge of adrenaline, she threw herself towards it, her fingers scrabbling desperately for purchase as the mannequin closed in. With one final push, Sarah managed to pry the hatch open, tumbling through the opening and into the darkness below. As she fell, she could hear the haunting laughter of the mannequin echoing in her ears, a chilling reminder of the horrors that lurked within the abandoned store. When she finally landed, Sarah found herself in the basement of the building, surrounded by rows upon rows of forgotten mannequins, their lifeless forms looming over her like silent guardians of the damned. And as she looked up at the hatch above, she knew that she could never truly escape the terror that awaited her in the shadows. For in the heart of that forsaken place, something ancient and evil stirred, waiting patiently for its next victim to claim. With trembling hands, Sarah fumbled for her flashlight, her heart racing as she scanned the dimly lit basement. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and a sense of dread hung heavy in the stillness. Every shadow seemed to dance with malevolent intent, and the silence was broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing. As Sarah cautiously navigated the maze of mannequins, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. The eyes of the lifeless figures seemed to follow her every move, their empty gazes filled with a cold, unyielding malice. Suddenly, a noise echoed through the darkness, a soft shuffling sound that sent a chill down Sarah's spine. She turned, her flashlight illuminating a figure standing at the far end of the basement. It was a mannequin, its features twisted into a grotesque parody of humanity, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. Before Sarah could react, the mannequin began to move, its plastic limbs creaking with unnatural grace as it advanced towards her. Panic seized her heart as she stumbled backwards, her mind reeling with terror. With nowhere left to run, Sarah backed into a stack of crates, her breath coming in ragged gasps as the mannequin drew closer. She could feel its cold, lifeless gaze boring into her soul, its presence suffocating her with a sense of impending doom. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, Sarah's hand brushed against something metallic amidst the crates. With a desperate cry, she grasped it, her fingers closing around the handle of an old fire axe. Summoning every ounce of courage she possessed, Sarah swung the axe with all her might, the blade connecting with the mannequin's plastic form with a sickening crunch. For a moment, there was silence, broken only by the sound of Sarah's frantic breathing. Then, with a sound like shattering glass, the mannequin crumbled to the ground in a heap of shattered limbs and twisted plastic. Sarah stood trembling amidst the wreckage, her heart pounding in her chest as she struggled to catch her breath. But even as she surveyed the destruction she had wrought, Sarah knew that the horror was far from over. For in the depths of that forsaken basement, something dark and malevolent still lurked, waiting to claim its next victim. And as long as the mannequins remained, the terror of the abandoned store would never truly be extinguished. Gasping for breath, Sarah stumbled away from the wreckage, her hands still trembling from the adrenaline coursing through her veins. She knew she had to find a way out of this nightmare, but the labyrinthine basement seemed to stretch on endlessly, its corridors twisting and turning in a maddening maze. As she pressed on, Sarah could feel the oppressive weight of the darkness bearing down upon her, its suffocating embrace threatening to consume her whole. Every shadow seemed to writhe with unseen terrors, and the silence was broken only by the distant echoes of her own footsteps. Suddenly, Sarah heard a faint whispering sound echoing through the darkness, like the murmurs of 1,000 lost souls crying out in agony. She froze, her heart pounding in her chest as she strained to listen. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, until they seemed to surround her on all sides. Sarah felt a cold chill run down her spine as she realized that she was not alone in the basement. There was something else down here with her, something dark and ancient, lurking in the shadows just beyond her sight. With a mounting sense of dread, Sarah stumbled forward, her footsteps echoing through the darkness like a death knell. She knew she had to keep moving, to find a way out before it was too late. But with every step she took, the whispers seemed to grow louder, more sinister, until they filled her mind with a cacophony of terror. Just when she thought she could bear it no longer, Sarah saw a glimmer of light up ahead, a faint flickering glow that pierced the darkness like a beacon of hope. With renewed determination, she quickened her pace, her heart pounding in her chest as she drew closer to the source of light. As she rounded a corner, Sarah emerged into a small chamber at the heart of the basement, its walls lined with rows of flickering candles. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested an ancient tome bound in cracked leather and adorned with strange symbols. With trembling hands, Sarah approached the pedestal, her breath catching in her throat as she reached out to touch the tome. As her fingers brushed against its weathered pages, she felt a surge of power coursing through her, a primal energy that seemed to resonate with the very essence of the darkness itself. In that moment, Sarah knew what she had to do. With a sense of grim determination, she opened the tome and began to read aloud from its pages, her voice echoing through the darkness with a power that was not her own. With each word she spoke, the whispers grew quieter, until at last they faded away into nothingness, leaving only an eerie silence in their wake. As the last echoes of the darkness dissipated, Sarah felt a sense of relief wash over her, as if a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. She knew that she had faced unimaginable horrors this night, but she had emerged victorious, her courage and determination shining like a beacon of light in the darkness. With a final glance at the tome, Sarah turned and fled from the basement, her heart filled with a newfound sense of hope. For though the mannequins may still lurk within the abandoned store, she knew that she would never again be afraid of the darkness that dwelled within. With each step she took, Sarah's resolve hardened. She emerged from the basement, blinking in the dim light of the abandoned store, her heart still pounding but her spirit unbroken. She knew she had faced something ancient and evil, something that defied explanation, but she had emerged victorious. As she stepped out into the cool night air, Sarah felt a sense of liberation wash over her. The city streets stretched out before her, bustling with life and activity, a stark contrast to the darkness she had just escaped. She knew that she would carry the memory of this night with her always, a reminder of the strength she possessed and the darkness she had conquered. But even as she walked away from the abandoned store, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something lingered behind, something waiting patiently in the shadows for its next victim. She knew that the mannequins would continue to haunt her nightmares, their twisted forms a chilling reminder of the horrors she had faced. But for now, Sarah pushed those thoughts aside and focused on the warmth of the city lights ahead. She had faced the darkness and emerged stronger for it, and she knew that whatever trials lay ahead, she would face them with courage and determination. And so, with a newfound sense of purpose, Sarah walked into the night, leaving the abandoned store and its malevolent secrets far behind her. For she knew that no matter how dark the night may seem, there would always be a glimmer of light to guide her through the darkness.
Like, subscribe, and click on notifications that will allow you to stay up to date with the news and not miss videos from the channel, where there will be many more horror stories.